If you happen to be looking for small box card games that are fun for the whole family and feature super cute art, then you've got to check out Pixies, which we're reviewing in our video today. Hey gang, thanks for joining us at Tangent Mouse Studio 3. I'm Will Meadows.
And I'm Sara Meadows. Today we're reviewing the game Pixies from Bombyx and Pandasaurus. This is from designer Johannes Goopy and art is from Sylvain Trubot.
This is a 2 to 5 player tableau building game where players will be laying out 9 cards in a specific order, trying to gain a bunch of points. Now, we've played this game a bunch of times and we wanted to share our thoughts and experiences with it. Let's go ahead and give you a quick overview first of how to play the game.
To set up the game, you'll shuffle the deck and reveal 1 card for each player.
The players will take turns drafting a card into their personal tableau, which can hold 9 cards.
Once a number is played, its spot is locked, so on a future turn, if I take another 3, I must decide if I want to keep the first 3 face up or flip it upside down.
If I take another 3, I have to place it into one of my other empty slots.
At the end of each round, players are going to first score all of the spirals they can see, minus all of the crosses.
Then, they will score bonus points for their largest set of like-colored cards that are adjacent to one another in their tableau.
And then finally, any cards that are face down with another card on top are considered to be validated, which means they can be flipped over and scored at face value.
Players will take turns drafting cards until one player has managed to fill all 9 of their slots, and then the round will be scored.
After 3 rounds, the player with the most points wins.
Now, over each round of the game, players will score more points for the the matching colored cards that are touching each other. So in the first round, players will score 2 points for those, but then in the second and third rounds, players will score more points, making it really valuable for you to get as many touching colors as you can in that final round.
Yeah. It has an interesting draft mechanism where whoever got to go last is now the first player for the next turn. You're just going to very simply draft cards and add them. And if you happen to draw the same number, you're going to flip it over and you can pick which one. You're going to validate one underneath and it is now worth the value of the card. So you have ways to score quite a few more points by getting cards validated. If you happen, say you already have 2 5s and you draw another one, it'll just go in an empty slot. But if you don't get the right card covering it, it's not worth anything. So there's a little bit of pressure luck on where to put those extra cards that you gain.
Pressure luck or a little bit of card counting, or at least being hopeful that, I'm more likely to get, everybody else doesn't have a 2, so I'm going to put this in the 2 slot because I know that I'm going to more likely get a 2 later in the game. The game can be very light and fun, which is cool, but it can also be really crunchy if you want to do the math and count things out in advance, which I think is pretty cool. We obviously have to talk about the art in this game as well. The artist who created all these little characters and creatures photographed them, so none of it's like AI and none of it's drawn art. It's all actual made art,
physical
sculptures, that they then photograph, which makes every single card in the game fun to look at when it's on the board. So not that you're sitting around waiting for a long time, because the game does move fast, but one of the things that I've actually just enjoyed about playing the game is watching other people's reactions to the art, because when you first sit down, you're very focused on the numbers, but when you actually get the hang of it by round 2, then you're like, oh, look at these crazy little creatures, what's going on? And they are super fun. I really enjoyed the art.
We've had friends whose kids have just sat in 20 minutes staring at all the cards.
For sure. One of the other things that we didn't mention yet in the rules is that there are some cards in the deck that are wild cards, so they are, I guess they're all the colors,
They're
right?
all the colors.
And so that is a huge help as you're trying to build your tableau and get matching cards. I've seen people build really big, get 8 cards that match, where 4 of them were actually the wild cards that they somehow managed to get lucky and draft. And so there are some of those cards in the deck as well that help you towards those goals.
Yeah. There's also some that will score points based on how many of a certain color. So instead of just being a point value, or having the swirls or the X's, it's going to be a point for, say, all the red that you have. And those wild count towards that. So even if you have a couple of those in your tableau at the end, you might be able to score the wilds double.
I think this game, in my personal opinion, plays best at like 4 players. When you play at 3 players, it's a little bit too easy to get all the matching cards because she's trying to get all the reds, she's trying to get all the whites, I'm trying to get all the greens, and it just makes it a little, like, you're going to have a higher scoring game. I guess it's not necessarily easier, but when you play with 4 players, then everybody's kind of fighting over what those cards are a little bit more. Instead of just picking the one that has swirls, like you're trying really hard to get the colors that you want. And so I think you are going to have different play experiences. Same with like 2 players. I didn't enjoy 2 players as much in here because it was like, you take all the reds, I'll take all the greens, and neither the two shall mix. And I liked it at higher player counts because it was more interactive, a little less easy to achieve your objectives.
And there's some room for hate drafting in this game.
For sure.
If you're playing a little more cutthroat and less casually, you can definitely pay attention to what the other players are doing and take the card. If there's a couple that's like, oh, I could do either one of these, I'm definitely taking the card that's not going to benefit somebody else.
Yeah, for being as tiny of a box game as it is, we've definitely got our bang for our buck out of it because we've replayed it a bunch. It's really easy to pull out. It's super cute, so everybody's interested in it. And then the rules, even though they're a little bit deeper than like, whatever, a trick-taking game or something, the rules are simple enough that once you understand like, oh, okay, I understand what the word validate means. Now I'm in there. It's not a hard game to play, but it is challenging and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. This one is one that we've gotten to the table several times and we didn't even necessarily play all 3 rounds. Like, oh, we only have 5 minutes. Let's play 1 round of this real quick. And maybe we'll come back and play more rounds as we're in between games or waiting for something to wrap up. So it's a great filler that you can extend longer if you want to finish the whole thing or even just do one of those rounds.
Yeah, and the fact that the points ramp up towards the end, like all of a sudden everybody's in it hardcore by the 3rd round because they know that they got to get the points for it. And so it goes from being just a casual taken slot to like wait a minute, if I take this one and she takes that one, there's a lot of thinking that can go into that.
One thing I did like about it is the size of the box. There's not a lot of games with this specific shape of box. It's not the thin deck of cards box where it has the 2 slots for cards. This fits in my pocket a little bit easier because it's a little more compact. So I appreciate that.
If I was going to be super nitpicky, my only complaint actually is the box, not the size. But I need like the little side tab thing. I can't ever get my fingernails in here. That's reaching for nitpickiness. The other thing that it's not really a complaint, but the game, there is a lot of math in the game because you are scoring each round. You're supposed to remember that. The game doesn't, let me show you the score pad. It comes with a score pad, but it's more of an example score pad than anything you would ever write on. It's got one copy for us here to use as a score pad. You're going to need a phone or a piece of paper to write your score on. But all that being said, for being a super compact game, we have definitely, as I already said, gotten our bang for our buck. We've enjoyed this one a lot. We've played the snot out of it. It's super fun. It fills the table, and it's a good time. So we thought we'd share it with you guys in case you might be interested in checking out Pixies from Pandasaurus Games. And then, as always, thank you guys so much for tuning in, following along, liking all of our videos here at Tantrum House.